So we are going to get this started. Today's topic is on habits and willpower. So achieving your goals in life, whether it be in maybe wellness or maybe in your career, it isn't always just a matter of doing or the action of getting to your goals. There is a little bit deeper level to it in order to create positive behavior change. Sometimes they're big steps, and sometimes they're even just like little steps towards your goal or towards that positive behavior change. In this webinar, Carolyn, Kelly, and Isaac will help you better understand habits as a whole, the formation of habits, like the habit loop strategy, and the aspect of willpower, which plays a major role in staying true and committed to positive behavior change. So before I hand it over to Carolyn, as she will begin with understanding habits, a couple quick housekeeping items. So this webinar will be recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And it's always the full webinar, the full recording, not just the highlights. So if you do have to leave for another meeting for any reason, you will get the email that also contains the slide deck with the recorded link to that YouTube video. So that way you can catch up on what we were talking about after you left, or if you do just simply want to review what we were talking about at a later date, that is available to you. And then finally, questions. Any questions that you might have, or even some simple comments that you might have, feel free to share them in chat. The team and I will be looking through chat quite often, and even feel free to use the Q&A, but chat is always kind of the best means for maybe asking a question, and we will try to answer that throughout the course of our webinar. Any questions that we don't get to, we will address maybe through an email and make sure that we answer those questions to the best of our ability. And don't forget our Healthier Together wellness platform. Lots of great resources there, including direct links to like our YouTube channel, virtual flex breaks, even just some direct things for you, like the Medtronic Employee Assistance Program, as well as some other tools and resources like journeys, some meditation sessions, things like that. So feel free to register at healthiertogether.medtronic.com and utilize some of those resources to your advantage. So Carolyn, please take it away.
I'm going to intercept Carolyn, and
I'm sorry.
I'm going to take it away. So I'm Kelly. We're going to go over understanding habits. So to kick us off, I'll be reviewing the definition of a habit, the various types of habits, and how habits can be beneficial. I think typically Carolyn does go first, so I think Kyle was just in a habit of putting her in where I was supposed to be. Okay, so what exactly is a habit? A habit is an acquired behavior pattern regularly followed until it has become almost involuntary. An example of this would be looking both ways before crossing the street. It can also be defined as a customary practice or use. And then piecing together various definitions, a habit is a behavioral pattern that we repeat often in regular intervals, such as the repetition serves to improve our ability and familiarity with the behavioral pattern. So eventually, after a certain amount of repetition, we might be displaying the behavioral pattern without any conscious thought about it. So now that we have the definition, let's explore the 6 common types of habits. So there are many types of habits, and this slide categorizes it into 6 categories. So it's pretty general. There's so many habits, so I will just briefly go over these types. So there's preventative habits, and these are the habits that may promote a longer life, such as taking calcium supplements to prevent bone loss, flossing your teeth regularly to prevent cavities, using sunscreen. So those are the preventative habits. Then there are eating habits, and that's the types of food you eat, as well as how often and how much you eat. This can have an impact on your physical and mental health. And some examples are filling your plate half full of fruits and vegetables, or packing healthy snacks for work. And those would be healthier, more positive eating habits. The third one are habits of mind. This is tougher to control, but thought patterns can easily become habitual. So some beneficial mental habits to aim for could include engaging in positive self-talk, keeping a gratitude journal, and finding humor in everyday challenging situations. That last one, finding humor, is one that I often do to cope when my mother-in-law visits. Hopefully she'll never be watching this slide or this show, but my husband and I, when she comes, she's usually here for 2 weeks. And in the beginning, it would put a lot of stress and strain on both my husband and myself. And now we really just try to find funny things that Grandma Lenny says and kind of share those. So it's really helped a lot. The fourth one is social and communicational habits. So these are the habits that can improve your relationships with others, such as making eye contact, using someone's name, and actively listening. Productivity habits are habits that help you manage your time and accomplish your goals, such as making a to-do list, eliminating distractions while working, such as turning off your phone, and things that just make you use your time how you would prefer to, rather than getting distracted and having that scattered brain. And then lastly, we have unwanted habits. So a lot of potentially negative habits provide relief or comfort in the moment, but you can create more problems over the long term. And I think many of us can easily think of examples such as procrastination, dwelling on past events. Maybe it's biting your nails or slouching at your desk. No, I have to sit up. Having maybe a drink or 5 after a stressful day to unwind. So those would be the unwanted habits. So, well, rather than dwelling on these unwanted habits, let's shift our focus to how much we can benefit from adapting the right habits. So when a habit benefits your life, the rewards you reap can also motivate you to stick with that behavior. So creating a new habit can be a source of pride because you realize you have the power to improve your life, which then in turn can help you bring you closer to being the person who you want to be. So positive habits don't just boost your self-esteem, they can also reduce stress and anxiety by offering a degree of structure and predictability to your everyday life. For example, meal prepping every Sunday can be making nutritious choices for the lunches throughout the week a lot less stressful and make it a lot easier if you do it all at once, rather than having to figure out every day what you're going to do. So now that we've gone over all of this, Carolyn's going to cover habit formation so we can understand and incorporate positive habits into our everyday life.
Thanks, Kelly. Great info. Good way to get us started is just, understanding, what a habit is. So let's move forward into where do habits come from and how long does it take to build a habit? So as Kelly mentioned, a habit is a practice you repeat so regularly that it can be hard to change. So such as the example she gave, like on biting your nails when you're worried, right? Some other things could be diving into social media while standing in line. It could be picking up a bottle of wine whenever you pass the liquor store. So a habit might even be unconscious, like jiggling your leg when you're on a flight or licking your lips when you're forced to do some public speaking. But where do these habits come from and what happens in the brain when we form a habit? So during the early stages of habit formation, the decision part of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex, is activated. And the action is very deliberate. So, for example, instead of hitting snooze on your alarm, you might make the choice to get out of bed. Then when a new routine is initiated, brain circuits, which are also called neural networks, are activated. And the more often we repeat that new action, for example, not hitting the snooze button to get out of bed on time, right? The stronger and more efficient these neural networks become. So this reorganizing and strengthening of connections between neurons, that's what's called neuroplasticity. And each time you perform the new action while trying to form a habit, you need smaller cues or triggers to activate the same amount or the same network of the brain cells. So habits will strengthen over time as we form associations and earn rewards. So for example, not hitting snooze maybe makes getting to work on time a little bit easier. So we'll feel the benefits of this new habit. And then later, as habits strengthen, the decision parts of the brain no longer need to kick in to initiate the action. The habit is now activated in memory and is considered automatic. So the neural circuits can perform the habit without conscious thought. So in other words, you don't need to choose to perform the action anymore. It just does. And another way your brain forms a habit is by the chemical dopamine. So your sensory nervous system is always monitoring for actions you can take that will deliver that hit of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. We are wired to seek out pleasure. Our brain is always searching for pleasure. So when your brain recognizes a pattern, a connection between action and satisfaction, it files that information away neatly in an area of the brain called the basal ganglia. Now, this constant search for feel-good experiences can drive us in some less than helpful directions sometimes, right? Sometimes we pleasure things that aren't on our positive, healthy list, right? So it can lead us down a path that maybe we aren't looking to accomplish. But our brains are always chasing that dopamine high. So when a behavior comes along that results in a reward, the brain builds a connection between that behavior and pleasure that can sometimes be hard to shake. So let's take a moment and look at how long does it take to form a new habit? Well, there's been a long time belief that it takes 21 days to break a habit. Maybe you've heard that. How long does it take to break a habit? 21 days. Unfortunately, that is not necessarily evidence-backed. So the beliefs stem from a book from 1960, actually, called Psycho-Cybernetics, written by plastic surgeon Maxwell Maltz. So he said he noticed that it took about 21 days for patients to get used to their new faces after they had plastic surgery. So since he shared this about 21 days, it just became the thing, 21 days to form a habit. So according though to a more recent study, the time it takes to break a habit obviously isn't as clear cut as 21 days. It's not quite as simple as one number. Behavior change experts have found that a range, and a wide one at that, is more appropriate as there are so many variables involved in creating a new habit. So you'll see that 18 days is the minimum number of days it takes to create a habit, but it also goes all the way up to 254 days sometimes to create a new habit, which puts our standard average at 66 days to create a new habit. So you think, okay, 18 days, that doesn't sound too bad. I can do that, but 254 days, it's a long time. That seems like an eternity. So how do we stay inspired for the long haul, right? So first, there's no reason to get down on yourself if you try something for a few weeks and it doesn't become a habit. It's supposed to take longer than that. So there's no need to judge yourself if you can't master a habit or a behavior in that 18 to even 60 days, right? So embrace the long, slow walk to greatness and just focus on putting in your repetitions, on being consistent. And second, say goodbye to perfection. You don't have to be perfect. Making a mistake once or twice has no measurable impact on your long-term habits. This is why you should treat failure like a scientist. Give yourself permission to make mistakes and then develop strategies for getting back on track. And then third, embracing those longer timelines can help us realize that habits are a process and not an event. So all of the 21-day hype can make it really easy to think, oh, I'll just do this and it'll be done, right? But we all know that creating a habit and a healthy habit is a journey. especially if you're looking at a wellness or health journey, right? It's something we're going to work on for our lifetime, right? So embrace the process and commit to the system. And understanding this from the beginning makes it easier to manage your expectations and commit to making small incremental improvements rather than pressuring yourself into thinking that you have to do it all at once. All right, so now that we know how a habit is formed in the brain and how long a habit can take to build, let's talk strategy. So James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, and if you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. He says, all big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single tiny decision. But as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows stronger. So in his book, James Clear talks about the 3 core themes when it comes to behavior change and habit formation. Number 1, small habits make a big difference. So small hinges swing big doors, right? Don't underestimate the value of taking small steps. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on the path towards success. And then get rid of the all or nothing approach and just focus on 1% better every day. Number 2, focus on the system. Systems are about the processes that lead to results. So a bad system leads to bad results, leads to bad habits. So build good habits with a proven system. And then number 3, which I think is the most important, build identity-based habits. So create a new identity with yourself by deciding on the type of person you want to be. So let's say you want to run a marathon, right? Your identity is, I am a runner, right? That's your identity. Now build that identity with small wins, which will help you gain confidence and believe in yourself. So every time you go out and take a run, even a walk to get you started on that path towards that marathon, it's a small win, okay? Thanks for the question, Trina. I see that on the number 2, focus on the system, and I'm going to get to that actually on the next slide. So thank you for that. All right, so on this slide, like I said, I mentioned proven system. This is what we call the habit loop, and this is a proven system that has been working for behavior change experts for years. So a habit loop is a neurological feedback loop that governs any habit. So the habit loop consists of 4 elements: a cue, a craving, a routine, and a reward. So here's how the habit loop works, right? So the cue is the first thing. You experience a stimulus or a trigger. So that could be the time of day. It could be the location. Could be other people are a trigger if you're always with a certain person or group of people at this time. Could be an emotional state, and what are you always, and I think Kelly used the word, when you're anxious, you might reach for a drink or 5 drinks, right? So it could be that emotional state, or it could be a preceding event. And it's always when you do this, you do that, right? You go to a sporting event, you eat too much, whatever that might be. Okay, so that would be your cue. Then we move to the craving. So the stimulus causes you to desire a particular outcome, which motivates you to act, right? Then we move forward and we go to a response. So we have this cue, this trigger, we desire this particular outcome. So then we respond to that. So we engage in a behavior, we engage in a thought or an action. That's going to get us the outcome we're looking for. And then we get the reward. So the outcome occurs and we feel a sense of reward as a result, satisfying that craving. Okay, the pleasure or relief you experience then reinforces the cue, making the cue even better at triggering that same craving the next time. And we create an endless loop. And what did we say about habits? Repetition, right? The more we have that same cue, that same craving, the more we're going to continue on that same endless loop, right? So how do we use these elements then to create a good habit? So to create a good habit, we're going to look at these 4 laws of behavior change. First one being, make it obvious. So this is the cue element where we're experiencing a trigger, right? So here we want to use implementation intentions. I will behavior at time in location. Okay, so let's say that would be, I will take a walk. That's going to be my behavior at 5:00 p.m. in my neighborhood. Right? So that is my implementation intention. Use habit stacking. Okay? This is my all-time favorite. So you're going to stack habits on top of each other, hence the word habit stacking. So after current habit, I will new habit, because you're used to doing this current habit. So now you're going to stack on this new habit, and they're going to meld then together. So for example, after I log off for the day from work, so you shut down your computer, I will take a walk. So my current habit is I'm logging off. It's something I do all the time. It's automatic. I don't have to think about it. I always log off from work for the day. And then I'm going to go for a walk as soon as I log off for the day. Okay? Design your environment. So maybe it's putting your walking shoes by the door, or set out your workout clothes if you're going to change into something else ahead of time. Put it on your calendar. Get an accountability partner would be another great option. Hey, the second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. Okay? That's that craving element. So use temptation bundling. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. So let's go use our example of walking. So I want to take a walk. I need to walk the dog, right? So those two things can go together. Your dog needs to get out and go for a walk, and you want to do so. It's just not something you're used to doing quite yet. So let's push those two things together. Join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. So maybe you join a walking club because you want to continue walking. That's the desired behavior in this particular culture. Or maybe you start one in your neighborhood or at work. You could join or create a walking club. Create a motivation ritual. So this is doing something you enjoy right before a difficult habit. So maybe taking a walk to get in some exercises, not really something you look forward to, but you know you need to do it, and you want to do it. It's just not something you're in the habit of doing. It's not something you really look forward to. So think about what you do enjoy and do that for a few minutes beforehand. So maybe you just love to sit outside, right? So maybe you just get your walking shoes on, change your clothes if you need to, sit outside for 3 to 5 minutes, and then go on your walk. All right, make it easy is the third law of behavior change. So that's using the response element. So reduce the friction, decrease the number of steps between you and your good habits. So this is like setting yourself up for success is another way of phrasing this, right? Do everything you can to set yourself up for success. That could be by priming your environment. Prepare your environment to make future actions easier. And that could be, again, going back to some of those things we mentioned earlier. Could be setting your walking shoes out. Could it be getting an accountability partner, joining a walking group, okay? And experiment. You know, what works for some doesn't necessarily work for others, right? So some people are real social people and they want to walk in a walking club, but maybe other people, they get home from work and that's not really something that they would love to do. So know what you like to do, but also experiment and try different things. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. That's how we create and learn about making habits, right? Then we just revamp and try something different. And master the decisive moment. So optimize the small choices that deliver a big impact. So what this means is don't wait to make the decision when you're tired or low in energy. Make the decision when you're at your peak. So for example, if you're a morning person, Hey, you're going to, hey, I'm going to walk at 5 o'clock when I log off my computer. I'm going to walk. I'm going to go down and put my walking shoes out right now and get myself set up for success. Okay. And then the fourth law is make it satisfying, and that's our reward. So use reinforcement. So give yourself an immediate reward when you complete your habit. So you went for a walk. What could be an immediate reward, right? Could be something intrinsic, like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I just really feel so much better. Maybe it's a high five. Maybe your spouse or your kids are going to cheer you as you walk in the door, like, hey, great job, you did it. Could be something like that. You could, tally something like, hey, if I do 5 days a week of walking, I'm going to tally that up and write down all the days that I do it. And I'm going to give myself a reward at the end of the week or the end of the month, whatever that might look like. Okay. Make doing nothing an enjoyable option. So when avoiding a bad habit, design a way to see the benefits, right? So don't think, oh, I have to be doing something if it's a bad habit. Try and either revamp it to a good one or just do nothing. It's okay to do nothing. Right? Use a habit tracker, which means kind of what I mentioned earlier, just keeping track of your habit streak. And if you forget to do it, make sure to get back on track. That's all. But those are the 4 laws. So let's go back to kind of that cue, craving, response, reward diagram. Okay. So here's an example of how the habit loop can lead to undesirable habits. So let's say your cue is boredom. Okay, you hit a wall. You just feel bored with what you're currently doing. And that's what boredom is. It's not, I'm so bored. Like when kids say, I'm bored, there's nothing to do. It's not that we don't have anything to do. It's just we're kind of bored with what we're currently doing. And that could be a project, it could be a lot of different things. So maybe you're just bored with what you're doing right now. So your craving would be a break, right? I just crave a break from what I'm currently doing right now. So let's say your response then is, oh, I'm going to grab my phone and down the rabbit hole I go into social media, right? Maybe that's your goal. Maybe that's one of your goals is, not to be on social media as much, right? So then what would be your reward? Well, it would relieve you from an uncomfortable situation, which is the boredom. And the reward would be just a pleasurable distraction, right? But over time, whenever you feel this way, which is the boredom piece, it'll trigger, you'll crave a break. And what are you going to do? You're going to reach for your phone and down the rabbit hole you go. And the loop continues. I feel bored. I crave a break. I'm going to grab my phone and go down the rabbit hole. Oh, I feel like I got a nice pleasurable distraction. Oh, next time I feel bored, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Okay. The loop just continues on. So what can we change that will lead to a more beneficial result? Well, you're still feeling bored, right? You still crave a break, but this time around, you take a walk to provide that pleasurable distraction. So now over time, feeling bored will still give you the same craving of a break, but your response is going to be to go for a walk, which will still give you a pleasurable distraction, but it will also give you the reward of feeling proud of yourself for making a healthy choice. So now you're creating all these good habits by using that habit loop, but how do we make the habit stick long-term? So here's a framework for doing just that. So number 1, discover. So make sure you understand why your goal matters to you. Okay, so keep asking yourself why. So let's say we go back to our walking example. What do I want? Why do I want to make walking a priority? Well, because it'll make me feel better. Well, why is that important? So I could have more energy throughout the day. Well, why is that important? So I can be more productive at work. Why is that important? So I can find value in my work and feel accomplished. That's really your why, right? Is feeling accomplished. Okay, so make sure you continue to ask yourself the why question, and then try new ways of doing things. Like I talked about earlier, experiment. And I don't like the phrase trial and error. I always say trial and learn, because that's what we're doing. We have to try things to learn if it's going to stick for you personally or not. All right. So the next one is diagnose. So identify roadblocks or friction points or barriers, and then remove them. So create boundaries that will help keep you on track. And that can be a tough one for some people. A lot of us are people pleasers, and we forget that we can set up some boundaries and put ourselves as a priority to help keep us on track on our goals and habits that we want to create. So think about that if-then planning. If you haven't heard of it, I'll give you an example. So we'll go back to our walking example. Okay. So a barrier or roadblock could be that it's raining outside and you usually walk outside. So your if would be if it is raining or the weather is unconducive for a walk outside, then I will fill in the blank. So what would that be? I will walk around at the community center if they have a track. I will dance in my living room. I will put in a video. I will go to the gym, whatever that might look like to you. And then have these ahead of time ready, right? So that when it is raining, you already have your plan of what you're going to do. Prescribe. So figure out your ideal game plan and then personalize it to your interests and skills. So like I said earlier, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for someone else. So what do you want to do? What do you like to do? Right? Do you want to move more, but you hate to go running? But everybody says, oh, you have to go running. No, you don't. You can do something different. Maybe you like to dance or swim. Choose something that you like to do. And then create a plan that plays to your strengths. So your focus here is on your core values. So take time to ask yourself what you enjoy and what you value. Okay, so for example, if you value social connection, maybe you want to find a walking buddy. If you value connection to nature, maybe you're going to research and find some hiking trails in your area that you can go walking in. Practice. So don't get stuck in the all or nothing mindset. Okay, always shoot for progress, not perfection. And then start small. Okay? Just take a step. Start small. And your focus here is just on consistency. So keep on keeping on, as they always say, right? And focus on one small win at a time and celebrate every step. Okay? So I love that word practice because it's a reminder that it's not about being perfect. It's just about doing it. Okay? And then the last one for making a habit stick is pause, which means reflect. Okay? Reflecting on your efforts and results is going to build new links in the brain and those brain pathways, those neural connections. And then give yourself grace. If you reflect and go, God, I really didn't do very well this month on my goal. Okay, what did you learn from it? What can you do better next time? Okay? Visualize success. And then the focus here is on the growth mindset. So when at first you fail, try again. Okay? Remember, fail, F-A-I-L, means first attempt in learning. Okay, so keep experimenting, keep learning, and then keep building good habits. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Isaac. He's going to talk about willpower and how we can tap into it to be successful in our wellness journeys.
Yes, thank you, Carolyn. Wow, that was great stuff. Thank you for sharing a lot of great examples there. As I was listening to some of the stuff you were saying, I was like, how can I put that in my life rather than what am I about to talk about here in a few minutes? So I was really engrossed in that. So thanks so much for that. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about willpower, and habits and willpower tend to lead right into the other. So there might be a little bit of overlap with what Carolyn said and some of the strategies that I'm going to say, but they complement each other well. And I'll highlight the definition, limitations, and as well as those strategies. So first, the definition, willpower, the ability to delay gratification, resisting short-term temptations in order to meet long-term goals. So keeping your eyes on the prize, so to speak, like the cyclist in the picture, resisting the temptation to stop, fighting through, and staying focused to continue down the road chosen to have the satisfaction of completing the ride. So how do we help ourselves resist these short-term temptations? And how do we tap into our willpower more often? First, we need to understand, like a lot of resources, it is a limited supply. In the book, The Power of Habit, willpower is considered as a real form of mental energy, powered by glucose in the bloodstream and is used up as you exert self-control. It's now understood that the brain prefers glucose as its primary source of energy. So expanding on this, let's give the example of someone trying to stick to a diet. This person is consistently, throughout their day, exerting self-control by attempting to avoid any foods that do not help them stay within their caloric limit. They're using an enormous amount of mental energy to do so, making it very challenging to conserve their willpower. You kind of see why dieting is so difficult, because we need willpower to diet, and the only way to conserve our willpower is providing our brain with energy. And the way you give your brain energy is by metabolizing food, and you get food by eating. You can kind of create this vicious cycle of maybe self-blame, self-doubt, and self-belief if you're trying to stick to something like that. Instead, the real issue with limiting our willpower can be the number of decisions we are faced with every day. Sure, all Medtronic employees, think about the number of decisions you make in work alone. A study by the University of Chicago found that people with the best self-control are the ones who use their willpower less often. So instead of fending off one urge after another, these people set up their lives to minimize temptations, minimize decisions, being proactive instead of reactive in advance, so they avoid crises and conserve their willpower reserves. If you think about it, willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired as it works harder. The more willpower you use throughout the day, the less you will have later. Might put some understanding as to why late night snacks can be so tempting. We've done a whole day. So what can we do? I'm going to go over a few suggestions, a few strategies on how you can help conserve your willpower throughout your day. To start, since willpower is limited, begin by eliminating so many micro decisions throughout your day. As I mentioned, work alone, especially all the decisions that you make here at Medtronic. It's going to come with a lot of important decisions, and that's just work. That's not including all the big individual and family decisions that are made outside of work, as well as the micro decisions of what do I eat for lunch? What do I get at the grocery store? When can I make it to the gym? What do I do when I get to the gym? What do I wear today? I don't know if any of you have ever tuned into Kyle's Flex Breaks Monday through Thursday. If you haven't, you definitely tune in. But he is always wearing either the somewhat similar clothes, right? Either the same outfit or very similar outfits. And of course, we can give Kyle a hard time about it and whatnot, but really, he's the smart one. Doesn't take any time in the morning to decide what he wears, what goes with what. He knows what he likes. He puts it on. No decision having to really be made. And it's something that I've actually adopted well as in my life as well. I tend to roll a dice, and I see what number it points. That's the shirt. Roll the dice. Here's the pants that go with it. And if they completely clash, then I'll just move down the line. So in wrapping up on that first point, looking at your day, seeing what decisions you can do to eliminate those decisions to help be more proactive and keep your willpower supply conserved. Number 2 right there, write out a SMART goal. Is your goal specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely? Goal writing and goal setting can be a separate webinar in itself. So if you're interested in knowing more about this, I put a hyperlink for when you get access to the slides. It's a hyperlink that is a webinar basically about how to properly set your goals. But this can help willpower supply because it helps simplify what you would like to change. Eliminating the decision fatigue of, well, should I do this and this and this? It just helps give you a visual and simplify on what you're trying to accomplish every day. And that leads into number 3 there, change one habit at a time. With a finite supply of willpower, it's tough enough to reach one goal. So take on one goal at a time. For example, don't take on exercising, waking up earlier, and eating more vegetables all at once. Just pick one of those. Having to exert more self-control is trying to, why try to change all these things doing 25%? You're trying to do 4 tasks and you're like, instead of choosing one, you can do that one goal for 100% rather than 25% for those 4 tasks that you're trying to do. The book, A Power of Less, really highlights this process. It's a book that I've read in the past, and it really helps you go a deep dive in how you can actually simplify and which one to choose first, how to do that, and so on. Carolyn mentioned this one earlier, combining a new habit with one that you're like an already established habit. It takes a lot less self-exertion, keeping that willpower in check if you already are doing something that's involuntary and combining it with something that you're trying to change. So one that I always like to give the example of that is if you're, let's say you're trying to start meditation, maybe doing 5 minutes a day of meditation. You already, without even thinking about it, you brew your coffee in the morning. As your coffee brews, as that pot's a filling, the time it takes from the start to the finish, maybe try to do your meditation practice at that time. And start small. Like Carolyn mentioned, start just by doing it a little bit through every day. The example I like to give with that is 5 minutes a day. We all pretty much have 5 minutes a day. We can contribute at least 5 minutes to something. Being able to do that, let's say it's 5 minutes of meditation. You meditate for 5 minutes, good, accomplished. I did my goal for the day. Feeling good about that. And you'll find a lot of times with that 5 minutes, sometimes it ekes into 10 minutes. So just initially starting that 5 minutes is a lot of times just the first step into what often can lead to a little bit longer. Get social support, whether it be a workout buddy, a virtual challenge, or a community club. Having a sense of community and support is going to help you stay more accountable and in turn conserve that willpower because it takes a lot less mental energy to decide to go or not to that. So for instance, I used to be in a run club. The running, I liked running, but I wanted to be more accountable for it for the triathlons that I was doing. So I joined the run club, and really it made it be more like, oh, I get to see so-and-so today, not, oh, I got to go on a run today. The social interaction, kind of hitting on how I value that social interaction. And then secondary, oh yeah, I get to go on a run as well. Just in general, that helps you create more of a community and not on your own little wellness island off to the side. And then probably the one that you all know, you've heard 1,000 times, is to just give yourself a little bit more sleep or allow yourself to just rest throughout the day. 2 o'clock, right, comes around. Sometimes I just allow myself, take 5 minutes, close my eyes, and just sit there and not really try and think about anything. Just let myself relax, take my mind off of whatever I've been doing throughout the day, giving myself some rest to help conserve that willpower, that energy to help finish whatever I have to do for that afternoon. That's all I have. Hopefully you found some things helpful there. I'm going to hand the mic over to Kyle to go over some of our upcoming events and weekly live offerings.
Thanks, Isaac. Good information. And yes, the micro decisions. I do wear generally the same thing every day. Wasn't intending on it to decrease micro decisions, but as I learned and understood this dynamic and this aspect, it really makes sense, and it helps allow myself to stay focused or more productive, so I'm not losing that willpower, those mental stores. And last thing, that before I get into our some of our weekly or our upcoming events and opportunities, thinking of what Carolyn was talking about as well. I recently, within the last 4 days, decided that I wanted to create a new habit for myself. I enjoy woodworking, and I haven't been able to, due to some circumstances, have not been able to tap into that creativity bucket that I do enjoy, that and kind of helps reinvigorate myself. So part of Carolyn's information, I had that same aspect where I said to myself, and then actually to my cousin as well, where I was going to go out in the garage and do some woodworking projects after I put my child down for bed at 7 p.m. and do something for 2 hours. And then once 2 hours are up, if I continue doing some stuff, for a little bit longer, so be it. But I at least have that stop for myself, and it's been working out so far over these 4 days. Not there to the 18 or the 254 that it takes to to make the habit, stick, but I'm on the way. And Carolyn talked about something that I have just recently done. So crazy timing on that. But into the events and opportunities, as you may have already kind of read and looked through, I want to highlight 2 major ones here. The first one, our Fitness Transformation Challenge. This is a small group training program that we do on site, typically over the last few sessions that we've done. And it's typically a 10-week program where we, as your well-being specialist, will provide a workout program for you and just help you work towards your fitness goals, but also help with some nutrition advice, some accountability, and things like that. For this session, October 2nd through December 22nd, we are offering a virtual option. So whether you are on site or if you are across the country or across the world and are interested in maybe building a new weekly exercise routine or a new exercise habit, there are options for you. And a lot of people, a lot of class members have really been enjoying this program and really feeling more confident when they're going into the gym and using the equipment, and a better sense of accomplishment as well during the time that they're working out. So that's a great option that is more fitness related. The other one that is coming up, and it's another larger program that we've done over the last couple of years, is called our Essentials of Wellness program. So this is more of a habit and accountability rejuvenation program almost that is all encompassing of essentially the 8 major themes or areas of wellness. So things like nutrition, fitness, habits and willpower, stress management and self-care, things like that. So if you are just wanting to maybe, like I said, rejuvenate your commitment to wellness, it's a great program. Learn some great information and just kind of revamp yourself and get back to some of those good habits like we talked about today. So yeah, those are the 2 big programs that I wanted to share that are upcoming in October. And then as always, we do have our upcoming wellness webinar in October that will be regarding self-care and stress management. And as always, our weekly live offerings, those virtual options for you to build into your calendar, to download the invites and take little breaks or even mental breaks every once in a while. If you want to focus on your posture, Isaac has a great positive posture break that he does Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Maybe you want to slow your mind down, relax, and calm yourself. We host virtual guided meditations as well. Or maybe it's a workout from our YouTube channel, or even it's maybe it's a non-impact or NIA as it's called, led by our team member in Colorado. Our NIA group exercise is kind of like a nice relaxing dance almost. So all those times that you see on this slide are in Central Time. So feel free, once the slide deck is sent out, use that link to be directed to our SharePoint site where you can download the calendar invites and participate when you can. But that is all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our wellness webinar. I know we went over by about 4 or 5 minutes, but I thank you for sticking around and hearing what we had to share regarding habits, habit loop, habit formations, even that aspect of willpower. So please, before you leave, we'd love to hear a little takeaway, something that you learned, something that you're going to try to execute moving forward into creating that positive behavior change and those positive habits. Excellent. Excellent. I know some of you are still typing in, but again, like I said, thank you. As always, feel free to join our Viva Engage community, Healthier Together. It's a good way to stay up to date on upcoming programs, information, and like what Kelly, Carolyn, and Isaac talked about with that community aspect. It's a great way to share what you're doing, things that are good, things that you might need help or you want to hear from other people's experiences that might benefit you in changing habits. Yes, the slide deck will be shared. Once I get the recording and upload it to YouTube, I will send out an email to all of the registrants and you will get that slide deck. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone. That is it for our webinar. Take care and hope to maybe see you either on site or in a virtual session, or maybe at another wellness webinar. Until then.
See you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks
All
for
right, thank
coming.
you.